Skull discovery stuns Indiana. 4,000-year-old human skull unearthed along Indiana's Whitewater River. A remarkable archaeological discovery has come to light in Indiana, where a fragment of a human skull, estimated to be over 4,000 years old, was unearthed along the banks of the Whitewater River. Now let's dig into this story together on the AI podcast.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Now, if I asked you to picture, a place where a 4,000-year-old human artifact might turn up, your mind probably jumps straight to Egypt, right? Maybe Mesopotamia.
Deserts, ancient river valleys.
Yeah.
The usual suspects.
Exactly. But today we're looking somewhere, well, much closer to home for many of our listeners and definitely unexpected. Fayette County, Indiana.
Yeah, this is a fantastic deep dive because the sheer age of this find, it really flips the script on what many people think about deep North American history. We're talking about a small piece, just a fragment of a human skull found along the Whitewater River.
And the dating.
Radiocarbon dating puts it around 2300 BC.
Approximately.
4,000 years ago. Just let that sink in. So our mission today is to really unpack what that means, what was life like in Indiana back then, and then trace the very specific kind of complex legal and ethical path this one fragment has to follow now.
We've pulled together sources, including official releases from the Fayette County Coroner's Office and info from the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, the DNR, to really map out how history, science, and federal law all converged almost instantly on this riverbank.
And what really jumps out right away from the sources is how the whole professional investigation got started. It was because of the quick, responsible action of, well, a non-professional. This whole thing kicks off because a local citizen just did the right thing.
Great. Let's dig into that moment of discovery. So this skull fragment was found back on June 2nd, unearthed by a local landowner there in Fayette County. And the sources describe this person as an avid collector of Native American artifacts.
And that detail, the collector part, it's actually pretty significant.
How so?
Well, historically, in some places, if a collector found something like this, it might just vanish, end up in a private collection.
Okay. Context loss.
Exactly. No scientific study, no legal process. But that's not what happened here.
No, the sources really emphasize this. The landowner recognized this might be significant, possibly human remains, and immediately reported it, called the Fayette County Sheriff's Department.
And that single action shifted everything. It went from being a private find to, a matter of public record and historical importance.
A really commendable ethical move. County Coroner Eddie Richardson specifically praised it. He talked about how community cooperation is just essential for preserving history.
Yeah, it's a great example. It kind of turns the old trope of collectors versus archaeologists on its head. Instead of conflict, you get immediate collaboration.
So the report is filed, and then the focus shifts, right? From the discovery itself to figuring out the age and the scientific context. The experts move in.
And this is where Indiana geography meets really, really deep time. The initial analysis, including that crucial radiocarbon dating, it came back with just a stunning age, approximately 2300 BC.
Okay, let's pause on that number. 2300 BC. We're talking 4,270 years ago?
Give or take, yeah.
I mean, think about what else is happening globally then. The pyramids at Giza are still relatively new.
The Indus Valley civilization is flourishing. Sumeria is thriving in Mesopotamia.
This isn't just old, it's truly ancient history.
It really is. And connecting that to North America, that date puts these remains firmly in what archaeologists call the late Archaic period.
The late Archaic, so roughly 4,000 BC to 1,000 BC?
That's the general time frame, yes.
Yeah.
This period is really, they were intensely focused on the local resources. Very specialized hunting deer would have been important, fishing in the rivers like the Whitewater. And they were experts at using wild plants, especially nuts like hickory nuts and acorns and seeds. They'd gather these things intensively, process them, store them. These late Archaic people were master adapters. They likely moved seasonally to take advantage of different resources as they became available.
That paints a much richer picture than just prehistoric. So this skull fragment, it's like a silent witness to this really successful, resilient culture that knew this land intimately.
For thousands of years before things like pottery or permanent villages became common? Exactly.
And getting this picture wasn't just guesswork. There was collaboration involved in the science too, right?
Absolutely. To nail down the details, they brought in specialists. Dr. Krista Latham from the University of Indianapolis Human Identification Center examined the fragment.
And what did she find?
Confirmed it was human, belonged to an adult individual. That gives crucial biological context.
And the dating itself.
That high-precision radiocarbon testing was actually done out of state by the University of Georgia. That adds another layer of verification to that 2300 BC date. Makes it really solid.
It's clear the finding carried a lot of weight. The coroner's office even described it as a powerful and humbling reminder that people have walked this land, our home in Fayette County, for millennia.
And that emotional piece, that sense of connection across millennia, is really important. It signals that this isn't just a scientific curiosity. It's a deeply significant cultural find.
Right. That feeling that this land has been home for so long, that leads us directly into the next phase, which is arguably maybe the most complex part of this whole story. The focus shifts sharply away from 4,270 years ago and onto a single federal law passed relatively recently in 1990.
Yeah, that transition from deep antiquity to modern legal compliance, that's often where these discoveries get really intricate.
Because you can't just put it in a museum display case.
Not necessarily, no. The priority shifts. It's less about pure archaeology at this point and more about legal and cultural obligations. So, the coroner's office had to immediately announce they were working with the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, the DNR,
And their goal.
to figure out the proper steps for repatriation and site management.
Repatriation, that's the key word here. The process of returning ancestral remains to their descendants or culturally affiliated Native American tribes.
Exactly. And that whole process is guided by a specific federal law, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, NAGPRA.
NAGPRA, okay.
NAGPRA is the critical framework. Its whole purpose is to make sure that Native American human remains and associated objects, funerary items, sacred objects, are treated respectfully and, where possible, returned to the appropriate groups. It basically provides the rule book for what has to happen, especially when federal land or federally funded institutions like the universities involved in the analysis here handle these kinds of materials.
And the DNR confirmed they're involved. Their spokesperson, Holly Lawson, stated they're working to ensure full compliance with NAGPRA, making sure everything's handled according to cultural and legal standards.
Right.
But, okay, help me understand this. When remains are 4,270 years old, how complicated does NAGPRA compliance get? I mean, that's really old.
It gets incredibly challenging. This is where the letter of the law meets the vastness of deep time. NAGPRA requires establishing something called cultural affiliation. It means demonstrating a relationship, a shared group identity that you can reasonably trace historically or prehistorically between a present-day recognized tribe and an identifiable earlier group.
Okay, that sounds possible, maybe, for remains from, say, 200 years ago.
Yeah.
But for the late Archaic period, 2300 BC.
Exactly. There are no written records from that time in this region. And the histories of many modern tribal nations, their movements, their formations as distinct groups, they often postdate these very early inhabitants. Tracing a direct line back over 4 millennia is, well, it's tough.
So how do they even attempt it?
It's a long, painstaking process. It requires extensive consultation with all potentially affiliated tribes. Officials have to gather and synthesize all kinds of evidence, geographical links, kinship studies if possible, archaeological data, linguistic connections, oral traditions. They're essentially asking, can any modern, federally recognized tribe demonstrate a reasonable connection, even if it's complex and indirect, to the population living in that specific spot along the Whitewater River 4,000 years before their ancestors were documented in the historical record.
Wow. So the DNR isn't just ticking a box. They're undertaking a massive, sensitive historical investigation, working with multiple sovereign nations.
Precisely. It demands immense cultural sensitivity and a deep dive into history far beyond textbooks. The fact that both the coroner and the DNR are coordinating shows how seriously Indiana is taking this responsibility. Technically, the coroner's role ends once it's determined the remains are ancient, not part of a modern crime scene. But then the DNR steps in to manage that whole NAGPRA consultation process.
And the ultimate goal is ensuring dignity for these ancient ancestors.
Yes, and proper return if affiliation can be established.
What about the site itself? You mentioned site management.
Right. That's the other key part. The specific spot where the fragment was found is now flagged. It's a known area of potentially huge historical significance. This likely means protective measures need to be put in place to prevent any further disturbance, looting, or accidental damage.
So this one tiny piece of bone doesn't just tell us about the past. It actually changes how that piece of land is managed today.
It really does. And that's a crucial takeaway for you, listening. This discovery is like a perfect little case study. It shows how managing ancient history now involves this triangle, the responsible amateur who finds something.
The landowner in this case.
Right. Then the precision of science needed to understand it.
The dating, the analysis.
And finally, the really demanding ethical and legal framework of federal law, like Necjanaj PRA. All three have to work together.
It's fascinating. This single small fragment found by chance along the Whitewater River in Fayette County, it really is, as the coroner said, a humbling reminder. A reminder of this incredibly deep human history beneath our feet and the enduring legacy of the land's very first inhabitants. It forces us to look back 4,000 years and also look squarely at our modern responsibilities.
And it leaves us with a final thought. Maybe it's something for you to really chew on. When the discovery is this ancient, predating all written history in the Americas, and the legal requirement is to find cultural affiliation, which is incredibly difficult. Does the simple act of the landowner reporting the find automatically place the entire burden of protecting it, understanding it, and potentially returning it squarely on the shoulders of the community and the state, potentially forever? How do we ethically manage pieces of the past that are almost untraceably old?
Okay, one question for you. What does this 4,000-year-old skull reveal about the ancient history of Indiana and early human settlement in North America? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.